You've been feeling it for a while now. That quiet alarm going off somewhere deep in your chest? Not loud enough to be panic, not sharp enough to be pain, but persistent? A whisper that something is fundamentally wrong. You wake up and the day stretches ahead like an empty highway. You go through the motions: work, relationships, pleasures, distractions, but there's this growing sense that you're performing a role in a play you never auditioned for. And the strangest part, you can't tell anyone. Because how do you explain that your life is fine, objectively fine, maybe even good by most standards, and yet you feel like you're drowning in slow motion? You've tried fixing it. More productivity, better habits, new hobbies. Maybe a relationship will fill the gap. Maybe a career change. Maybe if you just optimize your life enough, structure it perfectly, the feeling will go away. But it doesn't. If anything, it gets worse. The more you try to build meaning, the more you feel like you're stacking cards in the wind. And late at night, when you're alone with yourself, the question surfaces, is this all there is? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And beneath that question, the one you don't want to ask, what if I'm living the wrong life entirely? But what if I told you that this feeling, this quiet crisis that feels like failure, is actually your life trying to save you? What if this isn't a breakdown, but a breakthrough trying to happen? What if the alarm isn't telling you something is wrong with you, but that something is wrong with how you've been taught to live? Let me take you somewhere. Back before you learned what you were supposed to want, before you understood that life had a script, you were a child, and the world was immediate. You didn't think about who you should become, you just were. You experienced things directly: the taste of something sweet, the feeling of running, the strange fascination with how light moved through water. You weren't trying to be anything. You were just present to what was happening. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, something shifted. You learned that certain things were valuable and others weren't. You learned that you needed to become someone, that life was a project with goals, achievements, milestones. You learned to look at yourself from the outside, to measure yourself against standards you didn't choose. And without realizing it, you stopped living your life and started performing it. You stopped being and started becoming. You traded presence for progress, and the world that once felt immediate and real began to feel like a stage set. This is what the German philosopher Martin Heidegger called fallenness. Not in a moral sense, not as sin or weakness, but as a description of what happens to most human beings. We fall into the world's interpretation of what life should be. We absorb the goals, the values, the timelines, the definitions of success that surround us. We start living according to what Heidegger called das Man, the anonymous they. They say you should have a career by this age. They say relationships should look like this. They say happiness means that. And slowly, your life becomes a response to these invisible authorities. You're no longer living your life. You're living the life that was prescribed. And here's what makes it so insidious. This process feels like growing up. It feels like maturity. You think you're finally becoming a responsible adult, a functional person. You're checking boxes, meeting expectations, building the life you're supposed to want. But underneath, something is suffocating. Because you've replaced authentic existence with a performance. You've traded being for appearing, and your being, that raw, immediate sense of aliveness you had as a child, is trapped underneath layers of shoulds and supposed tos. Think of it like this. Imagine you're in a house you've lived in for years. You know every room, every corner, it's familiar, comfortable even, but one day you notice something strange. A draft, cold air coming from somewhere you can't identify. You check the windows, the doors, everything seems fine, but the draft persists. And the more you pay attention, the more you realize it's not coming from outside. It's coming from inside the walls. There's a space you didn't know existed, a room you've never entered, and suddenly you understand, the house you've been living in is not the whole house. There's an entire architecture you've been ignoring. And that draft, that's your actual life, trying to reach you through the walls of the life you constructed. This is what's happening when you feel that alarm. When nothing seems wrong but everything feels off. When you're successful but empty. When you're connected but lonely. When you're busy but bored. It's not that you're depressed or broken or ungrateful. It's that you've been living in the outer rooms of your existence, and your being is calling you toward something more fundamental. Something you can't name yet, but can feel. And if you're watching this video, there's a good chance you're already hearing that call. You didn't search for this randomly. Something in you recognized the title. Something in you said, yes, that's me. That's what's happening. And that recognition, that's not a symptom of your crisis. That's the beginning of your awakening. If this is resonating with you, if you feel like someone just put words to something you've been feeling but couldn't name, maybe it's time to stay. We go deeper into these territories every week. The subscribe button is right there if you want to keep exploring. Now, most people respond to this feeling in a predictable way. They try to fix the performance. They think, maybe I'm performing the wrong life. Maybe I need a different career, a different city, a different relationship. So they change the externals. They quit the job, end the relationship, move across the country. And for a moment, it feels like relief. New beginnings, fresh starts. The alarm quiets down, but then, slowly, it returns. Because they're still performing, they're still living according to they've just changed stages. New city, same script. Different relationship, same patterns, another career, same emptiness. Because the problem was never the content of the life. It was the mode of living. They're still trying to become, instead of learning to be. They're still responding to the question, who should I be? Instead of the deeper question, what does it mean to be at all? This is where most self-help fails you. It offers you better performances, more effective strategies, upgraded versions of the same mode of existence. Be more productive, set better goals, find your purpose, optimize yourself. But these solutions are like rearranging furniture in a burning house. They don't address the fundamental problem. You're trying to fix your life by doing more of what created the crisis in the first place. You're trying to think your way out of a problem that thinking created. Heidegger saw this clearly. He understood that modern life offers you an endless menu of distractions, roles, and identities, all designed to keep you from confronting the fundamental question of your existence. You can spend your entire life being busy, being successful, being connected, and never once ask, what is the meaning of being? Not, what am I supposed to do with my life? That's still playing by their rules, but what does it mean that I am at all? What does it mean that I exist? And here's the terrifying beauty of it. You can't answer that question with concepts. You can't think your way to it. You can only live your way to it. You have to stop performing long enough to feel what it's like to just be. No achievements, no goals, no identity to maintain, just the raw, immediate fact of your existence. And that's what the alarm is trying to tell you. Stop, be quiet, feel this. But that's precisely what we're afraid of. Because when you stop performing, when you let go of the roles and the goals and the constant motion, you come face to face with something unsettling. Not the void exactly, but something more subtle. The groundlessness of your existence, the fact that there is no script, no inherent meaning handed down from on high, no cosmic purpose that justifies your life. You've been living as if there's a right way to do this, an answer you're supposed to find. And when you stop, you realize there isn't. You're free, radically, terrifyingly free. And freedom, real freedom, is not comforting. It's vertigo. This is what Heidegger called anxiety, not the everyday worry about specific things, but the fundamental unease that comes from confronting your existence without any pre-given meaning. It's the feeling of standing at the edge of a cliff with no ground beneath you and realizing, I have to choose. Not choose from a menu of pre-approved options, but choose how to be, what to value, what my life means, and no one can do that for me. Not my parents, not society, not God, not philosophy, just me. And that choice isn't made once. It's made continuously, moment by moment, for as long as I exist. Most people run from this, and you can't blame them. It's overwhelming. So they dive back into the performance. More busyness, more distractions, more goals, anything to avoid the groundlessness, anything to avoid the responsibility of creating their own meaning. And they live what Heidegger called an inauthentic existence, not because they're bad people, but because they're living according to interpretations they didn't choose, playing roles they didn't author, avoiding the radical freedom and responsibility of their own being. But you can't run forever, because the alarm keeps going off, the draft keeps blowing, your being keeps calling, and eventually, you have to stop and listen. Let me tell you about someone. We'll call him Michael. Mid-30s, successful career in finance, good relationship, nice apartment in a major city. By every external measure, he was winning. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he was living someone else's life. He'd wake up at 5 a.m. to work out, not because he wanted to, but because that's what successful people do. He'd go to work and perform competence, knowing exactly which meetings mattered and which didn't, which clients to charm and which to ignore. He'd come home to his partner and perform intimacy, saying the right things, doing the right gestures, but feeling like he was watching himself from a distance. And one night, lying in bed, he had this thought: if I could design my perfect day, I don't know what it would look like. He'd been so busy building the life he was supposed to want that he'd never asked what he actually wanted. And beneath that realization was something more disturbing. He wasn't sure there was a he underneath all the performance. Maybe he was just a collection of roles, a walking resume, a series of responses to other people's expectations. He tried the usual fixes. Therapy helped him talk about his feelings, but didn't change them. Self-help books gave him frameworks, but no relief. He thought about quitting his job, but he couldn't articulate what he'd do instead, because the problem wasn't the job. It was that he'd been treating his life like a project to complete, a problem to solve, and he was running out of problems. Then something small happened. He was walking through the city one afternoon, no destination in mind, and he stopped to watch construction workers demolishing a building. He stood there for 20 minutes, just watching, not thinking about productivity or purpose, not performing anything, just present to the strange beauty of destruction, the way dust caught the light, the rhythm of the machines. And for those 20 minutes, the alarm stopped. Not because he'd fixed anything, but because he'd stopped trying to. That moment didn't solve his crisis, but it showed him something. That there was a mode of being he'd forgotten, a way of existing that wasn't about becoming, achieving, or performing, just being present to what is. And he realized he'd been so focused on building his life that he'd forgotten to live it, so he started experimenting, not with grand changes but with small acts of presence. Eating breakfast without scrolling, walking without a podcast, sitting in a park and doing absolutely nothing. And what he found was disorienting. Without the constant stimulation, without the goals and the narratives, there was this strange spaciousness. Not emptiness exactly, but openness. Room to breathe, room to feel, room to ask, what do I actually want, not what should I want? And slowly, things began to shift. He didn't quit his job, but he stopped performing so hard. He didn't end his relationship, but he started being more honest about what he felt instead of what he thought he should feel. He didn't find some cosmic purpose, but he stopped needing one, because he understood something fundamental. The point of life isn't to become the right person or build the right life. It's to be fully, authentically, presently, to inhabit your existence instead of performing it. This is the invitation that the alarm is offering you, not to fix your life, but to reclaim it, to stop living according to they and start living according to you. Not the you that you think you should be, but the you that actually is, the being underneath the performance. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because this isn't a technique. There's no 5-step process for authentic existence. In fact, trying to achieve authenticity is itself a form of inauthenticity, another performance, another goal, another way of avoiding the present moment. You can't become authentic. You can only stop being inauthentic. You can only let go of the roles, the masks, the scripts, and see what remains. If you're still here, still following this thread, that tells me something. It tells me you're ready for depth, not quick fixes. And if you want to keep going deeper, week after week, you know where the subscribe button is. Think of it this way. You're like someone who's been wearing a suit of armor for so long, you forgot it was there. It's heavy, restrictive, uncomfortable. But it's also familiar. It's protection. It keeps you safe from judgment, from failure, from the vulnerability of being seen as you actually are. And now you're being asked to take it off, piece by piece. Not to replace it with better armor, but to stand naked in your existence, to be exposed, to be vulnerable, to be free. And here's what no one tells you. This process feels like dying, because something is dying. The false self, the performed identity, the carefully constructed life, all the ways you learned to be acceptable, successful, lovable, all of that has to collapse. Not because it's bad, but because it's not you, it's the armor. And the armor is suffocating the being underneath. Heidegger called this being toward death. He didn't mean being obsessed with dying. He meant living with the full awareness that your time is finite, that you will die, and that this changes everything. Because when you truly confront your mortality, when you feel in your bones that your existence is temporary, all the bullshit falls away. The performances stop mattering. The roles stop being convincing. The question stops being, what should I do? And becomes, what do I want to do with the limited, precious, utterly finite existence I have? And that question has power. Not because it leads to some grand answer, but because it forces you to choose. Really choose. Not from a menu of socially acceptable options, but from the raw material of your own being. What matters to you? Not what should matter, but what actually moves you. What do you care about when no one's watching? What would you do if you weren't afraid of being judged? What life would you live if you stopped trying to live the right life and just lived your life? These aren't rhetorical questions, they're the questions your alarm is asking. They're the questions your being is demanding you answer. And you can ignore them, distract yourself from them, bury them under more goals and achievements and performances. But they won't stop asking, because they're not coming from outside. They're coming from the core of your existence. From the part of you that knows, that has always known, that you're living the wrong way. Now, here's what you need to do. And I must warn you, this will sound too simple. Your mind will want to dismiss it because your mind is trained to seek complexity, to solve problems, to achieve outcomes. But the work of reclaiming your existence is not a problem to solve. It's a way of being to remember. First, stop trying to fix your life. Seriously, stop optimizing. Stop strategizing. Stop treating your existence like a project that needs better management. The alarm isn't telling you to try harder. It's telling you to try differently. Or better yet, to stop trying and start being. Second, create space for nothing. And I mean actual nothing. Not meditation, not mindfulness practices, not intentional presence. Those can become performances too. Just time where you're not doing anything productive, not consuming content, not achieving goals, not even trying to be present. Just sitting with yourself. Bored, uncomfortable, restless. Let yourself feel it. Don't fix it. Don't distract from it. Just be with it. Third, notice when you're performing. Notice when you're saying what you think you should say instead of what you actually think. Notice when you're doing something because they say it's valuable, not because you value it. Notice when you're living according to a script instead of writing your own lines. You don't have to stop performing immediately, that's not realistic, but you have to start seeing it. Consciousness is the first step toward freedom. Fourth, ask yourself the dangerous questions, not once but daily, not as a thought exercise, but as a genuine inquiry. What do I actually want? Not what should I want, but what do I want, what matters to me? Not what should matter, but what actually moves me. If I weren't afraid of judgment, what would I do differently? If I knew I would die in a year, what would change? Let these questions unsettle you. Let them disrupt your comfortable patterns. That discomfort is the armor cracking. Fifth, stop seeking certainty. This is crucial. Your mind wants to figure it all out before you act. It wants a guarantee that you're making the right choice, living the right way, becoming the right person. But there is no right way. There's only your way. And you can't think your way to it. You have to live your way to it. You have to try things, fail at things, feel your way through the darkness. Certainty is a cage. Uncertainty is where your actual life lives. And finally, stop waiting for a moment of clarity. You think there's going to be some revelation, some breakthrough where everything makes sense and you finally understand what you're supposed to do? But that's another trap, another way of postponing your existence. Another form of they thinking, the belief that enlightenment or purpose or meaning is something that happens to you if you're good enough, if you work hard enough, if you wait long enough. But it doesn't work that way. Authenticity isn't a destination, it's a practice. It's the choice, made moment by moment to be who you are instead of who you think you should be. And here's the paradox that will either liberate you or frustrate you. You can't do this wrong, because there is no script. There's no test to pass, no standard to meet. The whole point is to stop living according to external standards and start living according to your own being. Which means whatever you choose, however you move forward, as long as it's actually you choosing and not they choosing through you, it's authentic, it's right. Not right in some cosmic sense, but right for you, right for this moment, right for your existence. This is what Heidegger meant by onus, the quality of belonging to yourself. of taking ownership of your existence, of recognizing that you are not a role, not a function, not a collection of achievements or failures. You are a being whose existence precedes any essence, any definition, any identity, and that being your being is asking to be lived, not performed, not optimized, not perfected, just lived, fully, honestly, presently. You want to know if you're on the right path. There is no path. You want to know if you're doing it correctly. There's no correct. You want to know when you'll finally feel like you've arrived. You won't, because there's nowhere to arrive. This is it, this moment, this breath, this existence, uncertain and groundless and utterly yours. The alarm you've been feeling, that persistent unease, that sense that something is fundamentally wrong, it's not your enemy, it's your ally. It's your being, trying to break through the armor, trying to interrupt the performance, trying to wake you up to the reality that you have a life to live and you're spending it trying to live up to someone else's idea of what a life should be. And the beautiful, terrifying truth is, you don't need permission. You don't need to figure it all out. You don't need to wait for the right moment. You're already free. You've always been free. You just built a prison out of shoulds and supposed tos and convinced yourself it was a home, but here you are, still watching, still listening, still feeling that alarm. And something in you recognizes what I'm saying, not because I'm giving you new information, but because I'm reminding you of something you already know, something you've been trying to ignore, trying to think around, trying to fix away. The fact that your life is yours, that your existence is not a problem to solve, but a reality to inhabit, that you don't need to become the right person, you need to stop pretending to be someone you're not. This video found you, or you found it, because your life is asking for something. Not asking you to change everything, not asking you to quit your job or end your relationships or move to a monastery. It's asking you to stop, to be quiet, to listen, to feel the weight of the armor you've been carrying and consider, just consider, what it might be like to set it down. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to have a plan. You just have to start. Start noticing, start questioning, start choosing, start being, not becoming, not achieving. Just being present, alive, yours. And if you do this, if you really do this, you'll find something extraordinary. Not happiness exactly. That's still too close to the performance, too close to the thinking, but something deeper, something more fundamental. A kind of aliveness that doesn't depend on things going well, or being successful, or figuring it all out. An aliveness that comes from finally inhabiting your own existence instead of performing someone else's. Idea of what existence should be? The alarm isn't a warning that something is wrong with you. It's a wake-up call, reminding you that you're alive, that you exist, that you have this strange, brief, utterly improbable gift of being. And you've been so busy trying to be the right kind of being that you forgot to simply be. So here's my question for you. The question I've been circling this whole time: what if you stopped? What if you let the performance collapse? Let the armor fall. Let the life you've been building crumble. And just stood there in the rubble of your becoming and asked, what now? Not, what should I do now, according to them, but what do I want now? What matters now? How do I want to be now? You might not have an answer. That's fine. The question is the answer. The willingness to ask it, to really ask it, is already a form of authenticity. Already a way of taking your existence back from they and claiming it as yours. This is what your life has been asking for. Not a better performance. Not a different role. Not a new script. Just you. Actually you. The being underneath the becoming. The existence underneath the achievement. The life underneath the living up to. And you don't need a video to tell you this. You already know. You've always known. The alarm has been going off this whole time, and deep down, beneath all the noise and distraction and performance, you know what it's saying? It's saying, come back, come home. Stop trying to be someone and just be. Stop building a life and start living. Stop performing your existence and start inhabiting it. That's what this is about. That's what the alarm means. That's why this video found you. Not to give you answers, but to remind you that you don't need answers. You need to stop asking the wrong questions. Stop asking, who should I be? And start asking, what does it mean that I am? Stop asking, what's the right life? And start asking, what's my life? You're already there. You've always been there. You're just buried under layers of performance, under years of trying to be acceptable, successful, worthy. But your being is still there, waiting, calling, alarming. All you have to do is stop long enough to listen, and maybe, just maybe, respond.